which took place, I'm glad to say, in just about ideal conditions, not quite as hot as we sometimes see. The story before the start of the Grand Prix: Eddie Jordan will not have Honda engines next year, but he will have Cosworth engines and badged by Ford, so he's happy about that. Before the start of the race, the drivers were trying to keep their cool as much as possible as Barrichello prepared to start from pole position and hope for a clean start this time, and all the problems he's had recently with mechanical bits and pieces. At the start of the race, Barrichello got away well.
Yes, but Michael is saying it's like starting on ice and then he gets squeezed into turn one, but the brothers know one another well enough. But here, Jarno Trulli, he got pushed one way, then he got pushed the other way. Button on the left, Montoya on the right, and then Ross looking at it thinking, oh, that's a bit messy, and it got messy. Contact with the Williams and the Renault out of turn 2, and then dropping down turn 3.
Well, there were one or two.
The way to go round, that's turn 11.
That's right, one or two made mistakes, but generally I have to say they were all very well behaved, particularly in the early parts of the race. And Rubens Barrichello just went away with Michael Schumacher, the two of them pulling away easily from the opposition, which was led by Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard and Kimi Raikkonen knew they were in for a long afternoon, but they just settled in there, didn't make any rash moves early, and it would certainly come their way a little bit later in the race. Barrichello and Michael Schumacher opened up an advantage lap after lap, gradually extending their lead.
Yes, pretty much a second a lap was the advantage they had, certainly in the first 10 to 15 laps, and Ralf Schumacher really in no position, but then he sort of seemed to stem that gap and stabilise it, and in fact drew it back in again. But once we got to the first round of pit stops, it was all over, and Ferrari domination was pretty much sealed for the afternoon.
Jacques Villeneuve was the first retirement in the BAR Honda. Mechanical issues putting him out of the race as we enjoyed the battle between Kimi Raikkonen and Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well, we do see some good passes from time to time. We've seen two great passes, two great races. This one wasn't quite as long, but Montoya losing out massively. Joy in the McLaren pit, but disappointment in Williams. Eddie Irvine, electronics, the fire went out, he said, and another disappointment for the Ulsterman, who really wonders whether Jaguar was worth it after all.
Slight mistake from Mark Webber coming into the pits, an unusual occurrence. He's usually pretty reliable, but he did make it through to the finish. And Anthony Davidson also making the odd mistake. Jenson Button going off almost a fraction of a second after Davidson had just run wide.
And there is Eddie telling Nicky Lauda precisely the problem, as Mark Webber manages to go a bit up into the air. That's coming out of turn 12. That's been a corner since more or less this circuit was introduced. But Patrick Head very agitated, very unhappy, as David Coulthard gets it wrong also on turn 12. And Patrick just explaining to the guys in the pit wall, do it my way, that's the only way.
Well, this was the battle between De La Rosa and Mika Salo. De La Rosa almost squeezed into the wall. Felipe Massa had hoped to get past Fisichella as they came out, but it didn't happen. And Davidson, unfortunately, suffering a loss of grip towards the end of the Grand Prix and spinning out of his debut race in Formula One, but has shown well all weekend, and we'll enjoy watching him again at Spa in a couple of weeks' time. Up front, the pit stops were perfect from Ferrari. They were beautifully orchestrated, every single pit stop that they made for both Barrichello and Michael Schumacher. Perfection to watch, and it meant that Barrichello was able to stay out in front. The word came from Ross, go and do a quick lap if you like, Michael. That's exactly what he did, a 1:16.207 to take the new lap record.
And you always know there's something going on when Ross's hand drops down to the left or the right. He's got the radios for both drivers. Barrichello, you think, on the left, Michael on the right. So nothing happens in Ferrari without the control from the pit lane, and between Ross Brawn and Jean Todt, of course, involving the two drivers in those decisions all the way through.
And there, the celebration at the end of the race, the Ferrari crew and Barrichello's boys being able to celebrate this time as well. They've worked so hard on his car throughout the year, and they've had some inexplicable problems. Now it's come good.
And remember, this morning in the warm-up, Rubens did drop the car off the track. He stuck it in the gravel in turn 13. The team, their eyes rolled and thought, oh no, not anymore.